What is one of the most underrated public infrastructure? In my opinion, it's shade. Let me tell you why. Shade is a matter of public health and social equity. It's particularly acute when you find out extreme heat kills more than 500,000 people a year. That's one death per minute. Let's get smarter on design. Today's subject, shade. In the city, there are two main types of shade. First, natural shade, such as trees and vegetation. And second, man-made shade, like covered walkways and bus shelters. You often find both, though unevenly designed and unevenly funded. Trees and vegetation can lower temperatures by up to 5 degrees Celsius. Shade is a basic condition for safe mobility. It determines whether people can walk outside without overheating, and whether outdoor workers can make it through a shift without heat stress. Despite its importance, shade inequality is real. And in some cities, the gap is stark. From Stockholm to Sydney, a recent study found that wealthier neighborhoods get more sidewalk shade relative to lower income areas. In Detroit, one analysis found that more than 90% of bus stops lacked decent shade, burdening tens and thousands of riders. And across the US, low-income districts and minority communities often lack trees and green cover, leaving them disproportionately exposed to higher risk of heat-related illness and death. Cities fail to plan for shade for multiple reasons. Here's two. First, urban design may prioritize aesthetics over pedestrian comfort. Shade is often treated as a nice-to-have rather than a civic resource, so it gets designed out in favor of clean sightlines and storefront visibility. Second, private incentives. In some places, shade is outsourced to the private sector. Los Angeles' bus shelters, for instance, were historically installed by advertising companies in exchange for ad rights. So shelters, and therefore shade, tended to appear where ad revenue could justify maintenance, meaning wealthier areas. If shade is considered infrastructure, then the policy implication is quite straightforward. It has to be planned and funded like any other infrastructure. A city can map where shade is lacking and prioritize the places where heat exposure is unavoidable. The next step is codifying it, making sure shade requirements are introduced and enforced. Singapore is a useful case study here. It mandates covered walkways and embeds greenery incentives in development guidelines. The country now has around 200 kilometers of covered walkways and millions of trees, making its districts up to 2 degrees Celsius cooler at night. Shade equity doesn't happen without long-term institutional maintenance. The world is burning, literally and metaphorically. Trees and urban shade can't solve everything, but they're increasingly becoming infrastructure of life and death. A city that doesn't plan shade deliberately and equitably is a city that restricts who can linger, who can safely wait for a bus, and who can even walk comfortably. If you have any other insights, please share. Let's get smarter together.